Welcome to another episode of On the Grind. I'm your host, William A. Neal, Communications and Government Affairs Officer for Belize Sugar Industries Limited, BSI. On the Grind is a magazine-style broadcast show designed to inform, educate, and communicate with viewers how the northern sugar industry works. Our hope is that we will peel back the layers on the industry and demonstrate the way things work from the farm to the factory and everything in between. However, we will not stop at our borders. As one of the country's chief exports and foreign exchange earners, we will travel across the seas and oceans to our markets in CARICOM, Europe, and hopefully beyond. Produced by the Communications Department of BSI, the show features stories, spotlights people, successes, challenges, transformation, and the evolution of the industry as we journey to sustainability. The goal is to build incrementally the understanding of the northern sugar industry, and in so doing, highlight incrementally as well its importance, its role, and its value to the economic viability of the country. In the world of economics, the broad definition of industry is a fundamental driver and opportunity for the economic and social growth of a nation. A point fully realized by residents of Orange Walk and Corozal, the Sugar Belt, where it is the lifeblood of the North, and a socio-economic and cultural way of living. South of Orange Walk, our aspiration is to broadcast images to change minds and shift perceptions that the northern sugar industry is merely a hotbed of contention and controversy. Modernization, digitalization, automation, energy efficiency, innovation, and technology drive the transformation from raw bulk to direct consumption sugars and improved efficiencies from field to factory and shipping logistics while improving environmental stewardship. In today's episode, we will have sit-down studio interviews and will introduce another recurring segment from field correspondents. Rev up, we're on the grind. Let's get into our show. Shawn Chavarria is currently BSI's Director of Finance. In our first sit-down, he talks about his early days as a part of the team to set up Belcogen, to now leading the finance department and playing a more crucial role to all of BSI's operations. He talks about financial uncertainty, securing new financing, pivot points, triumphs, and of course, the company's and industry's future.
So my journey started here in 2005. Initially, at the time they were looking at building the Belcogen power plant. I believe the negotiations on a power purchase agreement had recently been concluded, and so the whole negotiation of the financing had commenced, and then also negotiations with the contractor who would ultimately construct and build the power plant. At the time, it was the single largest private sector investment in Belize, the cogeneration project. And so it was an interesting time, a good learning experience for me, because I had to support the setup of a new company, all the financial controls, all the accounting systems. And so when that company started commercial operations in December 2009, I had been part of it from its inception to now seeing the startup. During that time as well, I supported a lot of the corporate accounting functions, cost accounting. And so it was really an interesting time. I learned a lot. And that learning continued on. I moved up to a financial controller role in 2011. So then became responsible for all the accounting and both financial and cost-wise for the mill, which is Belize Sugar Industries Limited, and the cogeneration business, which is Belize Cogeneration Energy Limited. And I was told at the time when being hired to come here that I will never get bored. And it's been true to form. every crop has been different, um, been a different challenging challenge, but there's been new rewards as well. And I think the best way to sum it up is that BSI, in a sense, is a school within a school, because you learn so much, you have new experiences. I mean, if you think about it, you know, we grow 10% of the cane, right? We have to then coordinate that cane to come in. So there's an agricultural component to the business. So that in itself takes its own knowledge and skill set and unique operational requirements. Then you have the milling operations, right? Which it's a complex operation, but all the people who actually run and operate the day to day are people from this community. They're Belizeans. In fact, 99.8% of our employees are Belizeans from the local community. And within that, you have mechanical operations, you have electrical operations, instrumentation. You have the people who support it in terms of procurement, um, fabrication shops, security. And so you have that whole process of crushing sugar cane, clarifying the juice, evaporating, crystallizing till you get to the finished product. As we've moved into value added, now conditioning and packaging has become a new sort of component of that operations, which again has brought about its own learnings that we have to do. And then you have the supply chain, which then is responsible for getting the product out to the market. And so if you look at that, it's quite a large, certainly in the context of Belize, a very large, expansive operations. And so you learn a lot. And even people here who, probably start out as a mechanic, they learn to do more than just being a mechanic, right? They can do a little electrical work. They learn about pumps, about motors, valves, these sort of things, which, a lot of them go back home and experiment with. So I know certainly growing up, a lot of people who work here felt that, I don't need to hire an electrician. I can do the work myself, because you learn so much here on the job. And I think that's the uniqueness of this place. It's you learn so much, you develop experience over the years that you even take home and apply with you at the home. And then you develop this camaraderie with people who are from your community as well. And you all, feel proud that because you're working towards the same goal. And I think that's been one of the success factors for this company, right? That people who come here stay for a long time. They enjoy what they're doing. Certainly, that's the way I feel. And, you build lasting relationships with people in the community.
Now, as someone who's in finance, you've cataloged some of the different positions that you've held within the company. Until today, you're director of finance. But what has the experience been like for you, also having to interface with an agricultural component or the factory or Belcogen, for example, to understand all the facets of the business itself?
For me, that's been one of the enjoyments I've had of the role here and my time here at BSI, because I've had the opportunity. I've been fortunate to have seen different stages that the company has gone through. I've seen good times. I've seen not so good times, but they all have their learning experiences. So I've been able to work with people, as you say, in the field side, to understand what it takes to grow sugarcane, for it, to run and operate in an efficient manner. I worked with people both local and outside of Belize on the industrial side, what it takes to operate an efficient mill, what are the sort of benchmarks we should be looking for. And then the cogen side, which, has been, for the past 12 years, a new business for us, what it takes to run a proper power plant company, right? And that's been its own journey and experience. And as we've changed more in terms of our logistics, right, that as well has brought about new learnings. Up to 2 years ago, we didn't know what a telestacker and truck unloader was. Now, we're operating these multi-million-dollar equipment, and the people are learning along, are part of that journey and learning as well. And so that's been one of the fulfilling parts of my role. I've been able to see so many different angles and facets of the business to support it, to help it grow, and to meet objectives so that we can have a long-term and sustainable future.
Now, I want to go back to something that you said earlier because I think prior to ASR acquiring the company, we were definitely in some dire straits. And what was it like at that time? Because, you know, on my side, I only saw what was in the headlines, but there's the headlines and then there's what is really happening on the ground in terms of the uncertainty and the need for capital to really keep the company running and to ensure that this does not cease to exist. So let's talk a little bit about that, perhaps that little time period right there, and then the transition that happened.
Yeah, I think that was certainly a tough time in the company's history. Um, as I was mentioning, part of the reasons we got into these financial challenges was because of the significant investment in Belcogen. Now, that investment was the right one to do because in order for us to grow and expand, we needed to have the power, the steam and the electrical power to be able to crush more cane, expand production, so that would make the industry more viable. So it was absolutely necessary that we invest in expanding our power generation capacity and being able to then become more efficient on that side and sell electricity to the grid, potentially 15% of the energy, was obviously a good business decision. It just so happens that it coincided as well with a time where sugar prices were low, cane supply started to come down, and cane quality as well was not where it should be. And so that was one of the challenge with the structure of the company, where it was majority owned by employees. You had 10% that was owned by Booker Tate, and then the Development Finance Corporation owned a smaller percentage. And so it wasn't a case where you can say, I will go to the shareholders to ask them to inject more capital. Your option really of being able to finance these expansion and investments was to borrow funds. And then what happened as well, 2008, they had the financial crisis, right? And that changed things upside down. Our main bankers were ING Bank and First Caribbean International Bank. And they decided that, look, there's too much risk. They want to concentrate, particularly ING wanted to concentrate in its home market in Europe. And so they said, look, I'm pulling out my financing. They need to do some de-risking. And so we started looking for, other bankers. But again, the market was just not suitable to be able to find someone who was willing to take that risk. So the company started looking for strategic investors, an investor who could come in and inject capital into the business, pay off the loans, and start fresh. And we had a number of companies that came to do due diligence. And again, I was fortunate to be part of that process to see who were the companies and their backgrounds and what they would be able to offer. There were some that wanted radical changes. They wanted to do away with the whole sugar rack. They said, look, your commercial agreement is too favorable, and they couldn't work with it. But at the end of the day, we ended up going with ASR because they came in with a vision. They are at heart, they are a sugar company, an agricultural company. Their ties with Florida, where they are big sugar farmers and they produce sugar. And they're also in the value chain in producing value-added sugar. There was obvious synergies. And what supported their investment as well in Belize was the fact that they were prepared to work with everything that existed. So the sugar rack, the commercial agreement, our agreements with the union, all those remain in place. They simply wanted to come in to invest and help grow this industry. And that has come true. Over the past 10 years since ASR has been in Belize, it's invested over $320 million to help grow this industry, to grow the pie, to make it more sustainable. It's helped the company weather some very challenging years after the deregulation in the European Union, where prices in Europe came down significantly. And so those years, and it coincided as well with COVID, where a lot of companies had to shut down, lay off employees, cut wages. We were fortunate that we didn't have to do any of that. We continued to keep the business running. We continued to pay wages, and all the increases that had already been negotiated and agreed were kept with employees. And I think that as well, was positive from a morale standpoint. That the employees were glad that they could continue working and earning. And so I think that investment by ASR into Belize not only saved the industry, but also rejuvenated it. It provided optimism.
Now, as somebody who is on the financial side of things, was there a moment where you thought, because while you're looking for investors and trying to find the perfect one to come and fit into what the Belizean context is, time is also ticking, and you're in flux where you're wondering, do we have enough time to find somebody before we go bottom up? Was there a moment where you thought that would happen, and what was the sentiment like? Because I think people may not understand that again, going beyond the headlines, seeing from afar is not the same thing as being involved in the trenches or up close.
I think that concern would have been at its peak between that 2010 to 2011 period, where we were looking for financiers and that wasn't working out. And so the change was to look for a strategic investor. But you had a bank who had already given you notice that they want to pull out. And then 2011 was also a time where we had to shut down the crop for 3 weeks because we had issues with the turbines. The blades got full. We had to send them to Guatemala. So imagine in February, the crop, is ramping up, and you have to go out and say, look, we have to stop the crop for 3 weeks to send these turbines to repair. You're already in difficult financial challenges. It was, I think one of the darkest moments, right? But as I say, the day is always darkest before the dawn, and I think ING was able to be convinced that, look, we have some potential investors that are serious about coming in. Give us another year to try to, see if we can negotiate something. And thankfully, they agreed. They agreed to extend the borrowings for another year up to end of 2012. And so that year, from September 2011 to September 2012, a lot of focus and attention was done on due diligence, working with these potential investors and narrowing it down to ASR. And thankfully, that was able to be done just in the nick of time to get all the arrangements for an investment to take place, all the approvals, because obviously ASR had to meet with not only government, they had to meet with the association, explain who they are, what they do. And I think, at the time, everyone was convinced that, look, this is a good strategic partner for Belize. In a sense, ASR is the largest cane sugar refining company in the world. So it's like having the Mercedes-Benz of sugar in Belize. And it's the right type of investor that you would want, right? That one that's in the business that you are in and can help you grow and reach, new heights. And so I think that was a time where, financially, we were at a very, deeply troubling time, but, were we able to overcome it? And as I said, that investment from ASR has really helped to come in to rejuvenate the industry. If you look across the CARICOM region, a lot of mills are closing down. I think at the time, Guyana was the highest producer of sugar in the region, followed by Jamaica. Both had I think both had 5 mills each. Both countries now are down to 2 mill. BSI alone produces more sugar than Jamaica and Guyana combined. So that tells you the story of how our fate, our direction could have gone in a very different way. And it shows the importance of having a strategic investor who is here to help grow the business and also help in times when you have to weather the storm, because we have since then gone through tough times as well with low sugar prices and the pandemic, but they have helped us to weather the storm.
Now, what would you say? Because one of the buzzwords during COVID was pivot, right? What would you say is, in your experience and your history with the company, is perhaps a pivotal moment that now, and where would you say we are, or we have pivoted to, and where we are?
Definitely starting during my time, moving to cogeneration was a key moment because you had to set the foundation for growth. Following that, with the deregulation in the EU sugar market, the pivot came for us in 2017, where we said, look, we can't continue to be a business that produces mainly raw sugar. There is no value in it. And so at the time, the decision was made, and we did all the business plan to get the board approval from ESR to say, look, we need to switch and move up the value chain and start making these value-added sugars to sell into CARICOM, to sell into the UK, to sell into the European Union, so that we can get better prices. Because over the years, you will see that the number 11 market for sugar, which is the benchmark price, is a volatile one. And so we will always have these peaks and valleys, right? We will have some couple of years where, yes, the prices are very good, but then you will have a lot of years where prices are low. Moving to value added, yes, you will see ups and downs, but the volatility of it will not be as great because you're selling now a product that has less volatility and can help cushion, when the world market prices goes up and down. And so that was a pivotal moment for us to start moving up the value chain, selling direct consumption sugar. And again, we had the expertise from ESR to do so because they're already in this business. And so we were able to apply the similar technologies that are being used to produce these Demerara sugars, to condition it, to package it. And so that was a key pivotal moment. The other one I say would as well that would come a few years later is the transition to Big Creek, to modernize our logistics operations. That for many years, while it was unique, we had to do it because of the way we are positioned in terms of being north, where water is shallower, and our closest port is Belize City. And even the port there, it's not a natural one, and we couldn't berth there. We had to, load offshore. It was the best that we could do. But when the Port of Big Creek dredged their channel and berth to 11 meters, that presented an opportunity for us to see if it would be viable to load sugar at the Port of Big Creek. And so we did a trial in 2019. After evaluating the trial, we concluded that it would be financially feasible for us to move there. So we did our business plan, got the approval for $30 million to make that investment, to transition our fleet to tractor trucks and trailers, build a 35,000-ton warehouse, build a 10,000-ton molasses tank, so that we can move our raw sugar and molasses logistics operations to that port. And that has been another transformational project, because we can't grow as a business if we don't fix our logistical constraints. And so that too has, in a sense, not only fixed a problem for us, it's also laid the potential for us to grow if we want to expand. And so that's been another key investment. And I think moving forward, we would want to continue to build on those, see how farther we can move up the value chain, see on the power, the energy side, if there's potential for us to do more green energy, to become more efficient in terms of our usage, so that we can sell more to the grid. And on the logistics side, see what other opportunities might exist for us to, utilize that port more, or even in our existing logistics operations. What else could we do to, reduce costs? Because that at the end of the day is one of the benefits of the commercial agreement. If we can get $1 more per ton for the sugar, or save $1 in our logistics expense, that is shared with the farmers. And so the farmers receive 65% of the benefits. So our move to value added and the investment in Big Creek has allowed us to improve the cane price to farmers. And that has had positive benefits. And we're seeing it with very good prices. The market is up, but also these investments are now starting to bear fruits.
Now, one of the final questions I have, because we're fast running out of time, has to do with the fact that what would you say you see as your role now within the company as we continue to pivot and to grow?
Well, I always enjoy the role of supporting business and coming up with strategic plans of what can we do to create a more sustainable industry. That is the element of the job that I've grown to enjoy a lot. And I've been able to, as I said, be fortunate to see how a lot of key projects have been developed, grown, and even participated in development of key projects. There is no more rewarding a moment in getting approval for multi-million-dollar projects that will have a positive and significant benefit, not only for the company, but for the industry, for the economy here. As I said, a lot of people here in the North depend on this industry. My dad is retired now after 45 years, and so he collects a pension, and so the company needs to continue to exist to be able to continue to pay those employees who have been here for many, many years to continue to receive that pension. And so it's not just about employees today, it's about employees who've given years of service and also wanting to leave a legacy for the future who are to come. Because at one point, I was just a boy growing up and watching this company, and I'm fortunate to be here. But you also want to see, leave in a sense, a solid foundation for those who might come as well. So I certainly want to be part of the journey, continue to be part of the journey to help transform this business and be able to say that, look, when I leave here, hopefully retired, and I can say that, look, we achieved very good goals, very good projects, and the company is in a better place than when I started. And so I hope to achieve that. And I've been, as I said, fortunate that we were able to do some good things here, but the journey is not finished and there is still more to do.
And the final question to your team, what would you say to your team?
A big thank you. A lot of the work can't be done without the team here, not only with the finance, but all our support functions, the communications, the key farmer relations, procurement, supply chain, our operations, agriculture, security, quality. Quality is now a big key function. Our safety department, who try to make sure that we have a safe workplace. Every area has a key role to play, right? And that is, I believe, the uniqueness of an operation like this, that everyone has a role, everyone supports each other, and at the end of the day, we all work towards the same goal. So I just say thank you, and we try to do our best to ensure that we're doing our part to having the company achieve its goal, because at the end of the day, if we can achieve our goals, it helps to build a better future for the industry here, and they themselves leave a legacy for future generations.